Hello, I'm ABC10 meteorologist Rob Carlmark with an update to the forecast. Now, here we are on Monday looking forward. We've got a couple more nice days and then winter weather is indeed coming back in a major way. A couple of things that we need help with: rain in the bucket and snowpack for the Sierra for our long hot summer, which you know is right around the corner. We're going to get help in both those regards. So I really like where we're going here because this is exactly what we need. Now, I always start off with this just because when it's working, it's worth highlighting. This is a La Nina year. You expect it to be drier than normal Southern California. That's happened. Wetter than normal in far Northern California and the Pacific Northwest. This is more or less coming back together, and it's storms like what we have in the future that really does round this out. Wetter than normal for Northern California, much drier for Southern California, although they've had help recently. So this pattern, very reminiscent, at least in our local area, California, of a La Nina pattern. So a lot of people write lots of articles, lots of studies about how El Nino or La Nina doesn't actually make sense or it doesn't really work out. You know what? Sometimes it actually can tip the scales a little bit, especially when you're trying to forecast months out of the actual prime of our rainy season. So as far as rain in the bucket, we've seen some in Southern California up until January when they had the Palisades fire and the other one near Altadena. It was low. It was almost zero. So we've seen some storms since then. That certainly has helped. But compared to normal, they are way below average. And in Northern California, one really big storm would do it. I don't think this is going to quite erase the deficit of at least a couple inches for most spots. But you know what? It is going to help. And there's more down the road. The only spots far Northern California still way above average. But you don't have to stress out. Our reservoirs, when you add it up statewide, federal, local, and state, we are 115% of average. There's a limit to how full they'll let them get because they need a buffer for big storms to absorb that, so we don't have flooding. But as the season gets farther along, that buffer does change and they allow more storage in the reservoirs because they just need less room as far as for a big storm. So this is where we're going. Nice weather, and then we're going to have some major changes. True, winter weather is coming back for Wednesday and Thursday, and we have to hold out hope to get more because that storm door is open and there is more stuff happening, most notably on the weekend. On Sunday, it looks like it starts to come back. So we'll have to watch the long range forecast because there's a lot of indications we're going to hang on to this pattern for a little while longer. What you're looking forward to is snow, the downside, chain controls, road closures, lots of slippery driving, and I would say even road closures are probably going to happen at some point just because of the sheer amount of crashes we see anytime we get a couple feet of snow. Often trucks, often passenger cars as well. We'll have to watch that closely. It is going to be much colder. That's a very big deal as far as where we've been because we've been in the 70s. A really long weekend of early spring conditions. You throw in a couple more, this abrupt change is really going to throw people for a loop. And we're also looking at some rain, heavy at times, including some thunderstorms. So there's a lot going on. Now on your Monday, it really looks and feels a lot like what we saw over the weekend, which was green grass, blue skies. I mean, it was epic, right? But this is a couple of reasons why we need to check this thing off and really start sewing up this rainy season. Reservoirs are in good shape, but we are below average for rain in the bucket, below average for snow. The good news is that we're going to get cooler again, and long range, we remain relatively active. Now, the only storms that really matter for water supply and snowpack are these atmospheric rivers. And on this Wednesday one, you can see that connection right there. It is not a super warm or a super wet storm, to be honest with you, but these kinds where the cold air gets drawn in early, these are very efficient for producing snow. We're going to get a lot of feet of snow. And then another one right there on Sunday. So we got to pay attention to both of those. And then you can see, there's more signs that some of this moisture can start trying to creep back into the area. Here's our cutoff low. Now, these are very interesting, quote unquote, storms. What's happened was the jet stream was so extreme that an area of low pressure developed on the bottom and then it started to migrate back up. So now it's just wobbling around here without a care in the world. These are very difficult to forecast. They're going to do what they're going to do. They wobble around, but in general, you can see right here, this kink starting to move down. It's going to get picked up and then it's going to pull it south of our area. So this is good for rain chances for Central and Southern California, which, as I pointed out earlier, is good for them. And we can just wait for the next one, which will develop back here. And that's really what's going to make things come together for us on Wednesday into Thursday. One important highlight of this storm is that we're going to see a lot of wind. And this is not as if it's one area. The mountains are going to get windy, but not the valley. This is everybody. In the valley spots during the peak of the storm, as the front is pushing through, we're going to be looking at wind gusts upwards of 35 to 40 miles per hour in the valley. Then we're going to have extreme winds in the mountains on Wednesday to Thursday as well. So it's just wind for everybody. Once that pushes through, then it'll be breezy to windy at times in general, but it's not going to be as windy as when the prime of the storm comes in the middle of the day on Wednesday. When does this start? It starts early Wednesday morning with light valley rain, and the snow is already starting to pick up. What's interesting about this is the consistency of the snowfall. When you could see for the valley spots, there might be a little bit of clearing, then all of a sudden it rains really hard. That's going to be the nature of how this comes together. By the way, embedded in some of these heavier rain bands is the possibility of thunderstorms with lightning, hail, heavy winds, and gusty winds. This will move through the middle of the day. And then when we get to the middle of the night on Thursday, the next phase for the valley rain is going to be spotty, generally light, but a few showers and thunderstorms are possible in the second phase of the storm. But for the snow, it just keeps continuing through the early morning hours on Thursday. Also, the snow level drops to about 3,000 feet. Now, grand total rain-wise, what are we going to see between Wednesday and Thursday? It's going to vary a little bit here, but we're looking at least a half an inch of rain for one model. The other one likes closer to an inch, if not a little bit more. So that's going to be a solid storm. Long range, again, we are hopeful that some of the gaps in where we are right now for snow and for rain may be helped out with future storms, because going all the way out to the third week in March, we're looking at likely cooler than normal conditions and at least close to some of the wetter than normal conditions. If it stays in Southern California, that'll help them. But overall, this is where we are. A couple of dry, warmer days. Then we're moving into weather impact alert days, which means the weather affects you and what you're going to do, or maybe even canceling what you can do. I'm thinking sports practices on Wednesday. No. I'm thinking driving between Wednesday and Thursday in this area is going to be heavily impacted. Things like that. Then as we move closer to the weekend, I would watch Friday for just some scattered light stuff because the pattern is still open. Saturday morning looks okay right now, but then Saturday night to Sunday, we've got another storm. Not a lot of valley rain, quarter to maybe half an inch, but in the Sierra, this could end up being a foot of snow just because it's a cold one. Then we'll have to keep our eyes on next week. It could go either way. It could go warmer. It could go back to a cold pattern. Now focusing on the snow. I was up in the Sierra starting Thursday night where it was snowing, it was cold, it was windy. On Friday was one of the coldest days I've ever seen up there, just experiencing it personally. Highs in the 20s. Most of the day was really in the teens. And then you threw in 40 to 50 mile per hour wind gusts. It was just straight up cold with the wind chill. The very next day on Saturday, temps were maxing out at 45, 50 degrees, and that just hammers the snow. You could see that Echo Summit right here. The snow is totally gone from the road. Myers, which usually has a big lump of snow right in the middle of the roundabout, that's all gone. You could just see in the mountains things have totally changed for the lower elevation snow. But rest assured, we're still more than 3/4 of the way where we should be state-wise for snowpack. So this is a good thing, and we are going to throw in a solid storm and maybe one more after that, just in the near term within the next 10 days. This is what we're looking at snowfall-wise, and this is what it looks like to get a very efficient snowmaking storm. Cold conditions, very consistent precipitation from sunup to sundown, and then cold at the very end. You really stack up inches, and obviously there's going to be some impacts in the mountains with a system like this. So there it is for the Tahoe-specific 7-day forecast. A couple more warm days, then all of a sudden, bam, get nailed with snow for a couple days, and then we're going to be looking at light lingering snow going into the weekend. That pretty much covers it all. I'm ABC 10 meteorologist Rob Carlmark.